we're going to talk about how to write an elevator pitch. But it's not a sales pitch. The goal is to get a conversation started in a clear and concise way. The idea is you should be able to say it in about as long as it takes to ride an elevator. And we're going to look at how to write an elevator pitch for a supervisor or colleague who you'd like to get some support from. So this type of conversation is for someone you already know and work with. And to show us how to do it, I've invited Alan Weiner to explain it. The man, the myth, the living legend. So let's get into it. Welcome back. Alex Lyon here, and today we're talking about how to write an elevator pitch, and I brought in a ringer to help us out. We're here with Alan Weiner. He's the author of an amazing book called So Smart But: How Intelligent People Lose Credibility and How They Can Gain It Back. In fact, this is the #1 book I recommend on this channel. I've cited it in countless videos. I recommend it to clients. It's an excellent book, and I have the good fortune of being Alan's friend. He's my mentor. Alan, you've helped me out in so many ways over the years, and I'm honored to have you on the channel. Welcome, and how are you today?
I'm feeling great, and I'm totally flattered that you asked me to be on with you.
You are so humble. So we're going to talk all about how to do an elevator pitch, but before we get into the actual structure of the pitch, for years, you have been encouraging your clients, many Fortune 500 clients, CEOs, the top-level people, to be clear and concise. So why is it so important that our viewers communicate in a clear and concise way?
Well, the way I think of it, it's the talker's obligation to be clear in order to best serve the listener. A talker, in a lot of ways, is like a teacher. During the time that a person is talking at work, they're really teaching, and they have to think of their listeners as if they were students and say to themselves, what do I need to say and how should I say it in a way that my listeners can understand? I had a CEO not that many years ago one evening who said to me, I know you're the guy here that does communication skills training. So many people come into this office to talk to me, and when I hear them speaking, it sounds like a drum solo. It's like improvisational jazz. I can't make hide nor hair out of what they're saying. And he said sometimes they run up to the whiteboard and start drawing things at the same time. Can't you teach them to be clear and concise and measured in the way they put things? That's really just a listener saying, why should I have to do all the work to listen? Why don't you do a little bit more work to make it easy for me?
So we want to be clear and concise because we want to communicate in a way that listeners can actually grab onto what we're saying and be motivated or inspired or persuaded, so our message will land. And one of the best ways to be clear and concise is to organize our messages around talking points. So when we're talking about how to write an elevator pitch, you're going to share with us 4 talking points that listeners, that viewers can structure their elevator pitch around. And can you give us a preview of what those 4 talking points are and a brief example?
Okay. The classic talking point elevator ride is composed of 4 thoughts, which are a problem, a cause of the problem, a risk or consequence if the problem isn't fixed, plus the suggestion.
Okay. What would that sound like?
All right. So I'm going to say this out to you as if you were the person I was talking to on a Zoom call. And it would be something like, Alex, we're losing time. Too many people are involved in this decision. It's going to mean delaying the launch. We need to arrange a Zoom call to get everyone on the same page.
So there it is. That's 4 talking points, 4 sentences: problem, cause, consequence, solution. And a couple of things I want to point out about that. First of all, it is hard, if you're listening to this, watching this video, it is hard to narrow down a message that concisely. It takes work. You've got to get out pencil and paper and practice a little bit, cross some words out to hone it down. You'll also notice, Alan, or viewer rather, that Alan paused in between. Now that's to help us learn it today, but you do want to have a nice pause at the end of those sentences to let the idea sink in before you go on to the next. Now there is also a way to make it even clearer. So we were talking earlier, Alan, about adding signposts. So that's where you signal even more clearly for the listener the point that you are making. So could you give us that same example again with the signposts?
Okay, so here we go. Alex, the problem is we're losing time. And the reason for that is way too many people are involved in the decision. And the risk we run, the consequence, if we don't get on top of it, is there'll be a delay in the launch. My solution is that we arrange a Zoom call and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Wonderful. So clear, so concise. Those are your those are your talking points to structure an elevator pitch. Now, if you speak with one sentence at a time, you'll be absolutely clear and concise. Of course, over time, for a longer message, you can always add detail to each of these points to expand upon it. But it's a great discipline to practice this as just 4 sentences. That'll teach you better than anything how to be more clear and concise. So you also have a slightly longer version, Alan, of this elevator pitch, and that is where you have the first 4 points, and then you add 3 additional talking points to the end. So you have problem, cause, consequence, solution, and what are the 3 extra talking points at the end?
The first one is the downside to the solution. The second one is the upside to the solution. And the final one is the first step that you think should be taken to make the solution happen.
So why would we want to, as we structure our message, add these 3 points onto the end?
By talking about the downside to your suggestion, you're showing leaders in the organization that you're not naive about suggestions, that you know there's always a potential downside to them. Makes you a big picture thinker, even a more strategic thinker. Small price to pay to be called strategic. The upside is a sales technique, really, to show the benefit of your suggestion. And then finally, the action step says you're a really action-oriented, decisive person.
So it gives you a lot, those 3 extra points add a lot more value to how you come across
They do.
as a communicator. So if there's a reason to add those for the particular audience you're speaking with, viewers can add those. So can you give us an example of what that would sound like all the way through with those 3 additional talking points at the end? And if you could do it with signposts to add that additional clarity, that would be great. So what would that sound like?
Okay, so here we go. The problem is we're losing time. The reason for that is that too many people are involved in the decision. The risk we run if we don't get on top of it is there will be a delay in the launch. My suggestion is we arrange a call to get everyone on the same page. Now, there's a downside to that. I know it might hurt some feelings, but on the upside, we'll stay on schedule and we will have a successful launch. This afternoon, I'm going to arrange that call.
So that last step is that one next action step that you're going to take and that they can get on board with. I love how smooth that is. Those 3 extra points really add that additional kick. So that's the short version, 4 points, and the longer version with the 3 extra points. So how else might we use this? So people will always say to us when we're doing workshops, I love these talking points. They really grab onto this framework. How else can I use it? So what would you suggest?
Well, if you were asking me about writing skills as opposed to talking skills, we would have done it exactly the same way. I would have said there's a number of emails that can be laid out exactly the same way using the same 4-point or 7-point line. And I think that it's a good way to practice anyway. So you'd lay out an email, you'd have a subject line like the launch, and the opening line to that email would be, "We've got a problem."
Great.
So that's first of all. And second of all, if someone in the organization says, "Look, you need to do a presentation on the launch," and says, "Just go out there and tell the story," that means your PowerPoint deck is going to be arranged according to the same storyline. Sometimes it's actually called a narrative or storyline: problem, cause, consequence, solution.
So really, this can be used for written messages or expanded for more stand-up presentations. And then that way, your message will have a coherence all the way through one way or the other because it's built upon this framework. I love that. It's so handy to use in different situations. So in terms of next steps for you, the viewer, I recommend that you think of a person that you want to pitch something to, you want to share a message with. Use these, start with the 4 talking points of problem, cause, consequence, solution. Structure a 4-sentence message around that framework. Do it in writing, practice it out a little bit to see how it sounds. So just get the juices flowing and work it out so it's nice and concise. Alan, thank you so much for being here. You've been a friend, a mentor, and a real pleasure to talk with over the years. Thanks for being on the channel.
Again, it was a pleasure to do it.
It was great to have Alan on the channel as a guest, and I encourage you to check out his book. I have put a link to that in the description below this video. See you soon.